Hey everybody, how are you? Today's things I want to change in the law or in the courts. And boy, do I have something. I'll tell you what, I just read a case where a trial court allowed into evidence an expert in a child abuse case. The expert comes in and says, well, by my statistical analysis, only 4% of children that report child abuse are telling a lie. So that means 96% are truthful. And the jury hears that. Now, that invades the province of the jury. They have to decide a case on an individual basis. But by doing this, the prosecution tells them, well, look, the odds are against it. It's way beyond a reasonable doubt. So what does the appellate court do? They look at that and say, you know what, trial judge, you should not have let that evidence in. But the defense put their own expert on to give different odds. The case didn't talk about what their odds were of a child lying, but they said, well, that balanced it, so we find it to be error. And here's the kick. Appellate courts do this all the time. They say, yeah, it shouldn't have been done, but it was what they call harmless error, so we're going to affirm the conviction by the jury in the trial court. I'll tell you what it is. They just don't want cases to be retried, even though they know the judge should never have let that evidence in. And here's what also happens in a lot of trials. DAs get up and make arguments that they know are not proper. And I can't tell you how many cases where DAs make improper arguments. They talk about reasonable doubt, they interpret it incorrectly. They do all sorts of other things that they slide into evidence. For example, if the guy didn't take the stand, the DA is not supposed to allude to that. The jury is not supposed to consider it because a suspect, a defendant in a case, has a right to remain silent, right? So when DAs do that, here's the trick the appellate courts do. Well, you know, it was error. It was wrong. They committed error. They were unethical in doing that, but it was harmless error, so we're going to affirm the conviction. Here's what it does. Here's exactly what it does. When prosecutors hear that, what they do is go, what the hell? I'll say it because we've got enough other evidence that will get the conviction, or at least the appellate courts, well, there was other evidence, so we'll call it error, tell the DA don't do it again, but we're not going to reverse the case because it's quote-unquote harmless error. What a bunch of baloney. How do the DCA, the District Court of Appeal, know how much effect that had on the jury in coming to their opinion? And it doesn't stop DAs from doing it. It encourages them to do it. It encourages them to talk judges into putting evidence on that shouldn't be allowed. It encourages them to make arguments that they know are wrong. Now, not all DAs do that, thank God, but when they do, they should be held accountable, and the district courts don't do that. That should be changed. Oh, by the way, see this? The visual law. A friend of mine runs this, and he assists trial attorneys when they're in trial. They do amazing work. One of these days I'll tell you about this because it is amazing what they can do with videos and all, but we'll save that for another day. All right, how about this for a saying? And I tell my kids this all the time, in school or when they play sports. All it takes is all you got.